Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour, sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing and that's badasswoodart.com. Remember to use promo code CTPocket for 20% off any one item at that's badasswoodart.com. And while you're here, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we're doing a giveaway at 3,000 subscribers. Whoever is subscribed to our channel, once we hit that point, will be entered into a contest to win a Skol, a custom Skol piece by our sponsor, that's Badass Wood Art. So joined today, continuing the draft conversation, someone we had the privilege of meeting in at the Senior Bowl is JP Acosta, SB Nation. How are you, my guy? It's been a chaotic 3 months since we've seen you.
Yeah, it's been good. Good, glad to be on. It's the first time. I'm excited. It's always got to bring some energy for the first time. But it's been a pretty chaotic 3 months. Got it doing some moving and shaking, but we're here. Draft is about to happen. We're winding down into the final stretch, and I'm excited. I'm ready to go.
Everybody sort of like goes into draft season a little bit different. Is there something unique about what you do when you're evaluating prospects, or do you focus on a specific group? I know today we're going to talk about defense and corners, but what's kind of your process in the off season getting ready for the draft?
So in the offseason, I cover and watch college football a lot. So I have like the top guys already. Like I know who I'm going to be watching. But when we get really into draft season, I like to watch the guys for like positions that I played growing up. So I start with defensive line, start with linebackers, and then I build out my knowledge from there. So I'm getting now into doing more work with corners, safeties, DBs, trying to fill out everything. And eventually we'll get around to watching mostly everybody.
Yeah, there's a lot of prospects to watch. And you mentioned the defensive line. We can touch on that a little bit today. We also have next week Devon Jackson, who you're very familiar with, will be joining the show. We'll get to pick his brain a little bit too. But the Vikings defense last season was abysmal. And I think that's putting it nicely. Ranked nearly dead last in the NFL in a bunch of statistical categories, a lot of aging veterans gone. But there's still some needs on this team. And so you touched on defensive line. So let's start there. Are there some guys in this draft that you're pounding the table for, whether it's first round, day 2, day 3, that could be potential fits for the Vikings?
So one guy I think about along the defensive line, I'm not sure how long he's going to be on the board just because of how good he is as a pass rusher. But I love the fit of B.J. Ojulari in the Brian Flores defense. He's not the best against the run right now, but dude's got bend out of the wazoo. He can get after a pass area. That's what he does. I love the guys where he's not. It's weird with this pass rush class where there are a lot of guys who are going to go through you, or we have a lot of guys who are more better as stunters or loopers on pass rush games. B.J. Ojulari is not that. He is a bend around the corner. I'm going to beat you with speed and burst. And because of that rarity in this draft class, I think he's a really good fit for a Brian Flores defense. You think about guys like, you think about a Jalen Phillips, who Brian Flores drafted in Miami. He's turning into a potential superstar in the NFL. But you think about a guy who can come off the bench and be a designated pass rusher. As Danielle Hunter, Darius Smith get up there in age, he could be a guy that I really like his fit in Minnesota.
For sure. And Miles, I can't remember. Ryan's not. We have another co-host on this show. He's not here, Ryan. I can't remember. Was it you or Ryan that liked B.J. Ojulari?
I think both of us, to be honest. Okay. I haven't watched enough of him to like pound the table for him, but I think there's a lot of upside and opportunity there in a 3-4 defense that we've talked at nauseum about the Vikings' future needs. So right now they have Danielle Hunter, they have Darius Smith, and then they have Patrick Jones and DJ Wonnum. But DJ Wonnum's going into his final year of his rookie deal. And then there's Danielle Hunter and Darius Smith, who are basically on one-year deals with the Vikings. So the Vikings kind of have this future need there, because at some point, Darius Smith's going to be gone, whether it's a trade this offseason or they release him next. Danielle Hunter is kind of in a weird situation where he's due an extension, but do the Vikings give him that extension? So there's a lot of that like up in the air. And if the Vikings were to go and spend a high pick on an edge rusher, outside linebacker, like if BJ Ojulari, I think that would just tell us a lot of where to go. But I think he would be a good fit in this defense. One
guy that I got Miles on the hype train a little bit, so I'm curious to know your thoughts a little as well. But is Mazi Smith? We've fallen in love with him. The pass rush upside is there. I just think he's got immense upside, and I also think he'd flourish in a Brian Flores scheme.
Yeah, I think right now, I like more the idea of what Mazi Smith can be more than what Mazi Smith is now. And to an extent, that's what you're doing in NFL draft. That's what you're evaluating. You're not evaluating guys for right now. You're evaluating for what they can become. What we know about Mazi Smith is simple. He is a really good athlete for the defensive tackle position. He has a lot of burst. He has explosion when he can play, when he plays to it. But there's just so much inconsistency right now. But if you get him in a Flores defense where you're just like, hey, man, you got one gap and you just go, maybe that'll take away some of the inconsistencies that he has in his game, where if you simplify the defense, he'll succeed really well.
Do you see Mazi?
Go ahead, Miles.
I was just going to say, do you see Mazi fitting better as a nose tackle in a 3-4 or a nose tackle in a 4-3 where he's got a 3-tech next to him?
I think right now, he would be best as a nose tackle in a 4-3, because I just think when you give him the ability just to turn off the brain and go, I think one of my favorite quotes by Coach Vass is, football is a simple game made difficult by coaches. You tell a guy you have one gap and go, that's exactly what Mazi Smith can do. I think coming from Michigan, he played a lot in that 3-4. He's doing a lot of two-gapping scheme, but you get him in a one gap, he can potentially be something good.
Another defensive lineman that I had fallen in love with as soon as we got back from the Senior Bowl is Wisconsin's Keaanu Benton. And he's getting a lot of hype now.
Like, you can't shut up about him.
Well, I think it's another one of those guys that has that upside. I know not everything is there for him, but when we think about someone trying to replace Dalvin Tomlinson in this defense, I think Benton could be that guy. Curious your thoughts there, JP.
I think I'd rather like Benton as a nose in a 3-4 than Mazi Smith. And one of the first things I noticed when we were in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, that's a big dude.
Yeah, big, huge.
Dude, long dude, huge hands, huge arms. And he uses those hands like extremely well. When he gets his hands on you, they're not leaving. I think there's still a little bit of upside with the pass rush, but he's a ready-made run defender. He actually flashed a lot more pass rush and one-on-ones than I thought he had shown all season at Wisconsin.
I think he was like 4th last year in all of college football with pressures. He just couldn't execute on completing and getting sacks.
So like Marcus Davenport.
Yeah, that's what he was. He's a guy who's going to get a lot of pressure from the inside, but maybe that pressure is going to turn into a sack for somebody else. Maybe it'll end up being an incomplete pass. He's like the glue guy in every starting five. Every basketball team, you got a glue guy who might not get all the numbers, but that team does not work without him. And Keaanu Benton's one of those guys where you put him in the middle of a defense, he'll be, like I said, ready-made run defender. He has upside as a pass rusher. He'll probably get a lot of pressures that don't turn to sacks for him, but just clean up for other guys.
Miles, who was the guy I'm spacing on his name? They called him Mr. Fundamental on the Vikings. You remember that defensive lineman?
Oh,
he went to Seattle and then he came back, but I can't think of his name.
Yeah. Damn it. Now I got it. Give me 2 seconds because I know now I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
Give me 2 seconds.
Not that I'm saying Keanu Benton is this player, but there was a while here in Minnesota where this particular player, and I can't think of his name.
I'm gonna just give me 2 seconds. I got it.
Was labeled Mr.
Shamar Stephen.
There it is. Shamar Stephen. Maybe a better version of Shamar Stephen, the Mr. Fundamental.
Well, when Keaanu Benton kind of has that like Kawan Short to him, right? Like that's like, but I know Kawan Short kind of played a little bit more of that 3-tech, 3-4 DN, and with Benton having that flexibility and that versatility in the interior, which I think is one thing the Vikings really need from a defensive lineman. They kind of have Harrison Phillips in kind of this no man land right now, but I think that's okay because he kind of has that ability as well.
Yeah, I think especially for a Brian Flores defense that requires their guys up front to do so many different things.
Yeah.
Disguising blitzes and pressures. You're going to have edge guys dropping deep into coverage. You're going to have defensive line guys dropping. You're going to have linebackers rushing the passer. You're going to have safeties coming from everywhere. You need guys who can wear multiple hats along the defensive line, and that's what Keaanu Benton can do.
Before we switch to the cornerbacks for the second part of this episode, are there any other, let's say day 3 prospects? I don't know if you've gotten that deep in the weeds. I know there's still some time before the draft, but any day 3 defensive line prospects that you think would be a good fit?
I think there's one guy, and he caught my eye during the Senior Bowl. He caught my eye actually during the Shrine game that we watched, I think, and it was Jose Ramirez from Eastern Michigan.
Okay.
He played, he was at the combine. He had some really nice moments at the combine, showing some nice bend. Went back and watched. You can see the bend on tape. He's another guy where the play weight is not right there yet.
Yeah.
But you get him in an NFL, like you get him in an NFL weight room. You get him around guys who can, I mean, the Vikings weight room and training facility is going to be a whole lot better than what it was at Eastern Michigan. So you're hoping you can turn him into something as a rotational pass rusher. But I think he's got a lot of tools that somebody can work with.
And that's what you want, right? On those day 3 prospects, you want those guys with developmental upside. And count me in, man. I'll go check him out.
He's a little bit of a tweener, though, right? Like,
yeah,
is he
a little bit on the smaller end? Sub 250, but I think that's okay. I think with some of his athleticism, especially like the 3-cone, he killed it. I remember seeing him at the Senior Bowl. Didn't know a lot about him going in, but I think from a smaller school guy, and like you said, JP, on day 3, those are the types of upside guys you want to take a chance on and develop.
Yeah, I'm gonna bet on that agility every time.
Yeah,
you don't see that from a lot of big guys.
Well, let's turn the page over to cornerbacks. Probably the deepest position in this class, and the Vikings are in need of it. They lost Patrick Peterson this offseason to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They did bring in Arizona Cardinal corner Byron Murphy, but they also let go of Cam Dantzler. So the cupboard is pretty bare when it comes to the Vikings cornerback room. Obviously, barring a trade up, which I do not see happening, they're not going to get the top guys. But where are you at with this cornerback class, and who are some of your favorite prospects?
I think it depends on your flavor of corner in terms of how this cornerback class is shaking out. I think for me, I love a corner who's going to be physical, aggressive, and man coverage, who will set the tone out wide. You need some guys. We talk about tone setters on the defensive line, linebackers. You need some tone setters on the outside.
Yeah.
You need some guys
dogs.
Face.
Enter that meme with the dog X-ray.
Yes,
got the dog in him.
And speaking of X-ray, the dog in him, he's going to be way out of Vikings range unless they trade up. But Devon Witherspoon is one of my favorite guys to watch. Just
CB1.
He has the mentality of a linebacker playing on the outside at corner, and he's only like 6 feet, 188. He is not a big guy, but he plays so much bigger than his size. He has a lot of production. I think in a man-heavy scheme, you just put him on the other receiver and forget about it. Just go worry about somebody else on the defense. And
his pro day was
guy.
Yeah, and his pro day was today. He ran a sub 4 in the mid 4.4s, I think it was 4.43, something like that, in that range.
Yeah, that'll play. That will absolutely
play.
Another guy who I'm really intrigued by is Joey Porter Jr. Of course, Joey Porter Sr. We know who that is. But Joey Porter Jr. he plays with so much aggression, and I think sometimes it gets the best of him because he wants to use his length and his aggressiveness and his hands to disrupt at the line of scrimmage. But when he misses, you're going to know that he misses because he misses pretty bad. And it's the same thing with Deonte Banks from Maryland. I think they kind of play the same style of ball where they want to be up in your face, physical. I don't want them playing any off coverage. I don't want them playing any zone for real. I want them in man. I want them dictating the pace of the play. And I actually love the Deonte Banks in Minnesota fit. I think he fits the athletic profile for what Brian Flores wants in a corner. He's going to play press. He's going to be physical. You can watch the Ohio State game. That's all the Deonte Banks experience in one game. One play, he's just absolutely shutting down a rep. The next play, he kind of guesses, and you know he guesses because he gets beat immediately. So, Deonte Banks, another one of my favorite guys to watch in this corner class because, like I said, sometimes you need a little dog in you at corner. You can't always play off coverage. Come up and be a man.
Deonte Banks has been mocked to the Vikings quite a bit recently, and I think it's obviously because he fits that kind of profile you mentioned that Flores looks at. We're also looking for more physical corners. Who are some guys on day 2 that could fall into that category?
So I'm still looking at some guys in day 2 who I think will fit. I'm not exactly sure how high or how low these guys will go. I think the physicality of a guy like Darius Rush, a guy that we saw in
Miles.
the Senior Bowl, that's another one of our guys. Me, Miles, and Devon, immediate winner.
Yeah, yeah.
I just love how patient he plays at the line of scrimmage. He is going to be in your face, but he plays with so much patience there. You can tell that at South Carolina, they played him a lot in off man. They played him in press man, but he plays with patience. He's not going to guess a lot. And I think he got overshadowed a lot because of Cam Smith, another guy who's gone a little underrated with the rise of Devon Witherspoon up to the top of the draft board, but that's another really good corner prospect. I think both of those guys on day 2 could potentially be good fits. I worry a little bit about the size and the middling kind of athleticism rankings, but Clark Phillips is a baller. I know that like we're gonna look a lot at athleticism, be like, oh, well, he only ran this, his three cone was this. That guy's a baller. Like, let's put him anywhere on the field. I think he can potentially play nickel if you want him to. He's just a guy you want on the field. His ball production's there. He can play in a man scheme. They played man at Utah. That's another guy on day 2 who I think will fall because of the run or the rise of Devon Witherspoon all the way up to the top of the draft board. And the run that's going to happen on like edge players and tackles are going to push some corners down the board.
Go ahead, Miles. I think you were going to say something there.
Well, I was gonna. So there's been some talk. Like, so the Vikings are looking at guys like Brian Branch from Alabama, who kind of has that hybrid safety. I kind of view him as like a Tyrann Mathieu type. Tyrann Mathieu played corner in college, but he had that safety versatility and nickel versatility. Jartavius Martin's another guy who I view in that like Brian Branch mold. He's kind of a safety corner hybrid, but that like core nickel player. And I've been really looking for I know the Vikings signed Byron Murphy, which I'm a huge fan of.
Miles predicted that, by the way, back in like October, but keep going.
I did. Yeah. What are your thoughts on guys like Brian Branch and Jartavius Martin, for example? You mentioned Clark Phillips, who kind of fits that mold too, but he has more outside versatility, I think. But what do you think of like those types of players in this Brian Flores defense?
So I think Brian Branch is the perfect Brian Flores defender. I think he is everything that he wanted Minka to be in Miami, to be like a guy who played nickel but also can move the safety. And Minka's like, no, I'm just going to play safety. Brian Branch is a nickel. That is a nickel guy. He's so smart in the underneath areas. He's coming from a Saban system. You know that they run NFL concepts there. You know he's smart when it comes to route distribution, when it comes to taking good angles on the ball. He's a sure tackler. He's the perfect modern nickel. The long speed, I mean, that's a little
That's what
bit.
safety helps for. That's what safety helps for.
Exactly. There are 11 guys on the field. We all help each other out a little bit. And another guy, Jartavius Martin, he really popped up on my board when I was watching a lot of Witherspoon and I was watching the combine. I think the athleticism is there. I think you worry a little bit about, of course, with the Illinois defense, a lot of that ball production was off of bad throws caused by defensive pressure or tips. You worry a little bit about that, but the guy is all over the field. He and Sidney Brown just all over the field. They played him everywhere. Sidney Brown, of course, was a little bit more of a box safety, and they played Martin a little nickel, played him deep. So I think He would be a pretty good fit as a nickel. I think Martin would probably be best maybe as a deep safety. I'd rather him as a
Okay.
deep safety than a nickel. But there, again, just so many guys now. And I think it comes with the evolution of college offenses and body types. And on defense, you're going to see a lot more guys like Brian Branch or these big nickels who have experience playing corner, but they just move inside because that's where all the action is.
A couple other guys that, you know, we all watched down at the Senior Bowl that I like as potential day two prospects are Tyrique Stevenson and Julius Brents. Has your evaluation changed on them since we saw them back at the Senior Bowl?
So I think I have to go back and watch Tyrique Stevenson based on what I saw at the Senior Bowl. I think he played arguably his best ball at the Senior Bowl. Miami was very rough this year, but you'll make a bet on the physicality and the athleticism that he has. He was shutting down receivers for most of the day in Mobile before he got injured. And Julius Brents is one of my guys. Keegan Renault put me on late in the season this year, and I'm like, man, this corner is really tall. Are you sure
He can play?
I was like, man, they moved this receiver over the corner. Like, are we sure about this? But no, dude can play. The physicality and the aggression. We talked a lot about tone setters on the outside. Julius Brents is a tone setter. He gets after it on screen plays to the outside, run plays. He wants to be involved in run fits. I think he's probably a little bit more of a zone corner. I think I worry a little bit about the hips because you're always going to worry about the hips for a big corner. But that guy, just get him on the field, get him in like a quarters Tampa 2 defense, and just let him play. Let him be aggressive, let him play physical, disrupt the line of scrimmage. I think he's going to be a good player for a zone heavy team. He's going to be a real good player.
I think of like the Richard Sherman Seahawks teams. Every time
Mhm.
I think of a Julius Brents like type of corner archetype for that cornerback position, like go to Seattle and with Pete Carroll and thrive like Tyrique Woolen did last year.
Yep, just go find Pete Carroll or a Pete Carroll acolyte because you look at Dan Quinn, you look at Gus Bradley, those guys are going to fall in love. Gus Bradley is going to love Julius Brents.
100%.
That is 100% a guy. You look at after they trade Stephon Gilmore, that's a Colts guy for sure.
One guy that probably doesn't fit our scheme that I did fall in love with down at the Senior Bowl is Kyu Blu Kelly. Haven't heard his name very much lately, and that's probably more so because he's not really a fit for what the Vikings are gonna run here. But who are some other guys as we kind of round out this show that if you were in the war room, you'd be pounding the table for?
So I'm going to go with corners and safeties for this one. One of my guys we saw in Mobile, Daniel Scott. That is one of my guys I'm going to pound the table for. Versatility all over the field. Plays both safety spots, play nickel, special teamer. I think he's a better true safety than Ashton Davis was coming out of Cal. Ashton Davis was just very, very, very fast. Daniel Scott might not be as fast, but he is a better true football player than Ashton Davis was. He's going to make a team very happy in terms of day 2, day 3 guy who's going to come in, be good on special teams, and then you put him in the game, he's going to find the ball somewhere. I think
that dude tested like crazy. I'm just real. I don't know a lot about Daniel Scott, but I just quick looked up his like mock draft of him. I'm like, God damn.
Yeah, he tested out. He tested it.
Yeah,
no surprise. I think another guy you talked a little bit about Kyu Blu Kelly, and he would be a perfect corner if Ed Donatel was still here. He is a Fangio corner. You can tell when he lines up, and by the way he plays the game, that he is the son of a former football player. And he plays like it. You get him in a zone defense. His knowledge of playing in zone is very advanced for his level. Yeah. But again, the speed is an issue. The hips are an issue with man. But you want a guy like that in zone where he just picks apart your offense and he's able to see routes really well. He's able to see routes develop. And like when we were in Mobile, he jumped a couple of routes like multiple days where I'm like, oh, okay. I like this.
We see you.
You have my attention. That's another guy that I would love to just have on a team. Just get him in my room, play zone. Let's let him cook. I think another guy, and this is 100% Florida State homer. Jammie Robinson is such a good vibes player. Such a good vibes player. He was talking trash all week in Mobile. He's like 5'10", 205. He's not the biggest guy, but he is absolutely going to try and hit people as hard as he can. You want him down near the line of scrimmage. You want him making plays. He's a perfect 49er DB where they just play with physicality. You get him, you can have him coming out of the roof on and quarters coverage. Just get him around the ball. He's gonna talk so much shit. It's gonna be hilarious. He's gonna start so much shit, and it's gonna be great. Those are a couple of my guys that I'm really intrigued to see where they fall. And then another guy, also Mobile, not really sure where he's going to play in terms of safety or linebacker, but Marte Mapu, that is a ball player.
Vikings brought him in on a top 30 visit.
That is a certified ball player. He's got speed, he's got range. You can move him to linebacker. I think he is the perfect, like, if Aziz Al-Shair or like Dre Greenlaw, when they were coming out of college, I feel like I get those same kind of vibes from Marte Mapu, where they just get him with will in a 4-3, or just get him on the field as a run and chase guy. He's going to make so many plays. He was making plays in Mobile all week, or he was making plays in Mobile before he got injured. But that's another guy that I really want to see where he goes.
I love it, man. That's a ton of prospects, and the Vikings will certainly be looking at that position group. Miles, anything for JP as we round this out?
Yeah, so down Senior Bowl, talking about Senior Bowl going in, I was a big fan of, basically because I was watching Deonte Banks, was Jacorian Bennett. Kind of splashed for me as I watched Deonte Banks. What are your thoughts on Jacorian Bennett as a, obviously a nickel, likely a nickel, but he's got some versatility, I think, too.
Yeah, he's got some outside chops, but being 5'9", 5'10", that's probably going to lock you into being a nickel. I think he can move. He can absolutely go. I like, with all the Maryland guys, I kind of worry about the guessing. I think I saw that a lot with Maryland, even with Deonte Banks. They kind of guessed on the outside, and you could tell when they guessed because they would get burnt for it. But you get him on as a nickel, I think that's a guy you can develop into a good nickel corner. You're gonna have to coach him a little bit out of the guessing, but I would rather coach you not to guess than to coach some aggression into you. You can't really coach that. But
you always want to reel up, take it back. Never want to have to be a coach that has to push it on you.
Exactly. And that's a guy you're not gonna have to push him in terms of aggression. You're not gonna have to push him at all. He could potentially be a pretty good nickel corner in the NFL. I think the size, again, definitely limits him to the slot, but having that coverage skill of being outside, that's going to help, especially in the modern offense.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we have for today's show. JP, I want to thank you for hopping on. Before we officially click this outro video, what are you working on over at SB Nation right now, and where can the people find you?
So, of course, you can find me at SB Nation, at Acosta32_JP on Twitter. And really, I'm working on a whole bunch of draft stuff. I have a feature profile on Anthony Richardson that I'm working on. His pro day in Gainesville. It was just what you expected from Anthony Richardson. The backflip was insane to see in person. Got a lot of cool draft stuff coming out. Me and my co-writer Mark, co-writer Jared Mueller. We have a mock draft coming out next week. Got a lot more cool draft stuff that's coming out. We just started this new series called Football Court, where I pretend to be a lawyer. It's a little hit or miss. I think my lawyer skills are pretty good, but we'll have to see. We'll leave that up to the court of public opinion. But that's what we got coming down the pipe at SB Nation.
Perfect. I also have your Lamar Jackson article that you released today, all queued up and ready to read. Why he would be a good fit for the Falcons, but why it isn't happening quite yet. So you can check that out on SB Nation. Have a ton of great guests coming up in the coming weeks here. Next week, Devin Jackson of the Philly Inquirer is joining us, Declan Goff of Score North, as well as Alec Lewis from The Athletic. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Come back to next week. And until next time, Vikes. Skol Vikes. Whatever.